Para los hermanos Neistat, artistas y cineastas de Nueva York, ningún objeto es obsoleto. Siempre pueden encontrarle un lugar en la pared o en su próxima película.
The first movie we made that really broke through was a movie about the iPod. And I was completely broke, and I had gotten this iPod. It was like $500, $400. And about 8 months later, 12 months later maybe, the battery died in it. And I called Apple to ask them to replace the battery. And their policy at the time was to tell their customers to buy a new iPod.
You might as well go get a new one.
Apple doesn't offer?
No.
Apple doesn't offer a new battery for the iPod?
No.
It wasn't that the battery died that was annoying, because in my Nokia cell phone, the battery dies, you buy a new battery. Even in my Apple laptop, when the battery would die, you replace the battery. But in the iPod, this expensive piece of hardware, when the battery died, you had to replace the entire unit. So it was my brother's idea to make a movie about just that. We went around with a stencil spray painting on every iPod advertisement we saw in town. iPod's unreplaceable battery lasts only 18 months. We put the video on our own little site, iPodsDirtySecret.com. In the first month, 6 weeks, it was at 5-6 million views. And the site went absolutely bananas.
Una abogada de San Francisco, Elizabeth Pritzker, oyó hablar del vídeo y decidió demandar a Apple por el tema de la batería del iPod. Medio siglo después del caso del cártel, la obsolescencia programada llegaba de nuevo a los tribunales.
When we brought this litigation, this was 2 years after the iPod was introduced, Apple had sold about 3 million iPods nationwide in the United States.
Buena parte de esos iPods tenían problemas con la batería y sus propietarios estaban dispuestos a ir a los tribunales. Igual que el vídeo de los hermanos Neistat, la idea de una demanda se extendió por Internet y captó la atención de miles de afectados. Uno de ellos era Andrew Westley.
I'm a music-oriented person, and my iPod is an extension of my being. I bought it actually to hold my music while I traveled transcontinental, and I think on the first flight between San Francisco and New York, if I'm remembering it correctly, the battery had drained before we actually took off on the runway.
We selected from amongst the consumers who had called us individuals who would serve as representatives in a class action. A class action is really a device that's fairly unique to the United States, where a small group of people stands in the shoes of a large group to bring one claim before a court.
My role in that case was as class representative on behalf of thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people. The case came to be known as Wesley versus Apple. When my friends and family learned that this was a major case, they thought I was, becoming a radical. Here I am going to sue. I was the next Aaron Brockovich.
En diciembre de 2003, Elizabeth Pritzker presentó la querella ante el Tribunal del Condado de San Mateo, a un tiro de piedra de la sede central de Apple.
We asked Apple for a number of technical documents regarding the battery life in the iPod, and we received a lot of technical data about the battery design, about the testing of the battery, and learned through that discovery that the type of the lithium battery that was contained within this iPod was designed, by design, to really only have a short period of life. I do think that Apple's development of the iPod was intended to be one of planned obsolescence.
El caso nunca llegó a juicio. Después de meses de tensión, las dos partes llegaron a un acuerdo. Apple creó un servicio de recambio de las baterías y prolongó la garantía a 2 años. Los querellantes recibieron una compensación. Andrew Wesley aceptó un descuento de $50 para un nuevo producto Apple.
They retained me as a customer. I bought an expensive laptop, and so I couldn't help but think that in the end, really, the benefit of my specific settlement really was Apple's benefit.
One thing that really bothers me personally is that Apple really promotes itself as a young, hip, forward-thinking company, and for a company like that not to have a good environmental policy that allows consumers to return products for proper recycling and disposal is really counterintuitive and counter to their message.